Hello there, people of the internet. Today we have ourselves a special little topic talking about 9mm parabellum. You've probably heard of it. I don't know for sure if you've heard of it, but you probably have. 9mm parabellum, 9x19, 9mm Luger. Same cartridge, all by different names. This right here is by far the most predominant cartridge, pistol caliber cartridge in the world nowadays. Due to its standardization with NATO forces after the Second World War. Well, the Second World War definitely made it popular, but that standardization made it very, very popular. So here in the United States, for a long time, the 45 caliber, 45 ACP was king. And before that, 45 Long Colt was king. Well, before that, I mean, that's a whole history lesson in itself, talking about 45 cal here in the United States. As a matter of fact, that might make for a fun video. I might do that down the road. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. 9mm, definitely the most predominant cartridge, pistol caliber cartridge in the world, not just the United States, but in the entire world. And it has definitely replaced the 45 in popularity. Now, I'm not talking about, whenever I'm talking about this video, or the topic of this video, I'm going to be talking about specifically popularity and not like capability. I'm sure that I'm going to have some people go into the comments, no, it absolutely has not surpassed 45. The 45 is way more powerful than 9mm. I don't know what this guy's smoking. He's an idiot. Yada, 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 yada. No, I'm talking about popularity for this video. So I don't foresee within our lifetime the 9mm going anywhere. I think that, well, it's survived the past 100 years, not only survived, but thrived and become the most popular cartridge that basically anyone in the world is using. If you're rocking a PCC or a handgun of any kind and you want ammo availability, the 9mm is the way to go, especially at the cost the 9mm is being produced, simply because of supply and demand. There's a tremendous amount of supply, and thus there's a tremendous amount of demand as well. But we are seeing, well, we're seeing 9mm get improved substantially, especially over the past like 30 or 40 years. We've seen 9mm not only grow in popularity a lot, but grow in capability a lot. It was like the standard ball 115 grain full metal jacket 9mm. That is absolute poultry compared to some of the other 9mm loadings that you can get out there, which can do just a tremendous amount of damage to whatever target it is that you're shooting at. For my range sake, I just use full metal jacket 115 grain. This is not the kind of stuff that I would be using if I were to actually use 9mm for a practical situation. But that's also a topic for another video. Despite the fact that 9mm is incredibly numerous, we are, well, incredibly numerous and incredibly popular and getting advancements in its capabilities on a regular basis, we are seeing new cartridges come out that can simply do the same exact things that 9mm can do, but better. Like, for example, 30 Super Carry. You don't lose any capacity with 30 Super Carry, but you get more energy transferred onto target with 30 Super Carry. And although 9mm has been absolutely like nailed into the minds of people that are looking for any kind of handgun cartridge, here in the next 100 years or so, who knows what the go-to de facto round will be. I feel like once NATO and once the United States adopt a new cartridge and stop using 9mm, I feel like the popularity of 9mm is going to drop as the popularity of whatever new cartridge it is that they pick rises up. And that's just what happens. As technology gets better, you'll have the last generation saying you don't need that new stuff, the old stuff will handle it just fine. But then that generation dies off, and then the next generation is like, hey, look at this new stuff that absolutely blows that antiquated stuff out of the water. So who knows what the future is going to hold for us. I know I don't, and I'm very doubtful that you guys do as well. But look at 4440. 4440 back in the 1870s, all the way up to the early 1900s. That was the de facto go-to cartridge for a lot of people doing a lot of things. 4440, that's a 44 caliber projectile with 40 grains of black powder behind it. And it wasn't exactly a powerhouse of a cartridge. I'd call it more of an intermediate cartridge nowadays than anything. But you had the 4440 and you had the 4570. By all means, they are not, lost to time. Those are definitely cartridges that you can still get to this day. However, they have definitely been outshined in popularity by other things. Let's go ahead and step forward a little bit in time. Look at the 30-06. The 30-06 was the go-to cartridge for decades, for forever, until the 308 Winchester eventually outshined it in popularity. Camera, where do you think you're going? You're going to stay right there and don't you go nowhere. But the 308 has definitely outshined the 30-06 in terms of popularity. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I won't necessarily go into that. But for a long time, people were like, you don't need the 308. We got the 30-06, and it can do basically everything. And just because the 308 has some slightly better advantages than the 30-06 in terms of size and, well, the size and the weight ratios. You can just carry more 308 than you can 30-06, and the price. The price on 308 is dramatically less than the price on 30-06. 30-06 is absolutely, still there. I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm not saying it's a bad cartridge. I'm just saying that 308 has become more popular. And there's a lot of people out there who don't like that, and that's fine. If you like a particular cartridge over, if you like one cartridge over another, and then by all means do whatever you want, your world, have fun. But down the road, just like what we saw with 4440 and 4570 getting replaced by 45 ACP and getting replaced by the 30-06, we saw 223 and 308 replace the old school cartridges. Now there's, we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here, but we saw those replacing those old school cartridges. And eventually, we will get to a point to where 9mm is replaced by some other great cartridge that is developed that has all the pros of 9mm without the cons. And I feel like once that happens, we're going to see 9mm kind of get tossed to the wayside. And over the next several generations, I know we have a whole lot of firearms in 9mm, but there were a whole lot of firearms in 4440 and 45 long Colt, 150 years ago, and they're not near as predominant as nowadays as they were back then. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, we're talking about several generations after we are gone. I do not know how much longer 9mm will last as the de facto go-to round for absolutely everything, but I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that it's not going to go anywhere within our lifetime. But that is my prediction. Whenever they dig up the archives of my YouTube channel and they're like, hey, look at this guy from 300 years ago shooting these guns, these extremely old antique style firearms out on his gun range. What a inspiration. We want to be more like that guy. But whenever they're talking about that, they're like, yeah, this guy, he was using 9mm back whenever 9mm still existed. Nowadays, you can't find it anywhere. You got to get it custom made, like, 44 Henry rimfire nowadays. I mean, if we were to go back 100 years, and it'd be like, yeah, 44 Henry rimfire. That stuff is, predominant. Help yourself. It's still made. Actually, I think they stopped making it in the 1920s. So we might have to go back a century and a decade. Oh, well, you guys get what I'm saying here. I like this thing. But yeah, 9mm. Right now it's predominant, but it's not as immortal as some people seem to think. I have, like, the reason I made this video is I was actually talking to somebody, and he is convinced that 9mm is basically immortal because of how many firearms out there that are chambered in 9mm. And yeah, for our lifetime, for our generation, this is the de facto go-to round. But the beauty about being here in the United States is you don't have to go with the de facto go-to round. Like, for example, my go-to round is actually the 40 Smith & Wesson. I definitely really enjoy that cartridge. Another go-to round is 10mm, but I've never actually used one or shot one or checked one out or anything like that. But that would also be a really good go-to round that gives you a lot of benefits. Those right there are some good options, but 9mm has just become the the de facto go-to for everything kind of round, basically just because of cost. The cost of the 9mm, it will get the job done, and it's lightweight, light recoiling. You can fit a lot of ammunition into the same size handgun in comparison to other size calibers for that same size handgun. I really butchered that sentence, but hopefully you guys understood that well enough to understand what I'm trying to relay here. Once that new technology comes into place, we'll have the older generation, which is my generation, and they're gonna say, you don't need that whenever you can just use this right here. This 9mm will handle your job. You don't need your 30 super carry. If someone gets shot with this, they're gonna know that they've been shot. And yeah, and then that generation will die off, and then the next generation is going to be like, man, 30 super carry, it's been around for 100 years, we know it works, and it works really well. But check out this new cartridge that's coming up, 35 long. I don't know, I just came up with a random cartridge name. I mean, hell, we might even see the development of handgun cartridges that use like a bimetal case that has brass and steel on it, to where it achieves like 80,000 PSI, like the new rifle rounds are gonna make. I mean, who knows what kind of cartridge technology we're gonna see in the future. Who knows if cartridges are even gonna be the wave of the future. We see rail guns, and we see freaking, I don't even know what I'd call them, laser guns. We see all sorts of fancy stuff being created by people in science labs that I just would not be able to comprehend myself. And as far as cartridges go, they're simple. You got gunpowder, primer, explodes, sends a bullet down the barrel, and maybe maybe common knowledge will have advanced to the point to where people will just understand how these newfound laser rifles are gonna work. I mean, I don't know. The technology we have nowadays, although it is stupid simple to us, it would have been revolutionary to somebody back 300 years ago. So 300 years from now, the stupid simple technology that we have nowadays might be replaced by something else that is just common knowledge. I mean, at this point, I'm basically just throwing out predictions. But with that new technology, I bet like back in the day, we had people running around with like a 45-70 trapdoor, and then you had your elderly guys like, you don't need that breech loading cartridge whenever this 1861 Springfield muzzle loader will serve you just fine. You don't need a cartridge to be able to shoot it. All you need is the powder and the ball, and you know, you can rock that thing all day long. You don't got to worry about trimming or cleaning brass or anything like that. I'm kind of selling myself on muzzle loaders here. But I bet that there were people back in the day who were like, you don't need cartridge guns whenever this muzzle loader will serve you just fine. You know, it fought in the Civil War, it fought in the Revolutionary War. You know, you can do a lot with this thing. I mean, you can do a lot with it. But once that generation is gone, now it's breech loaders, and they're like, you don't need those repeating rifles. And that generation is gone, then we get the next generation of self-loaders, and then auto-loaders, and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the 9mm here in the next 100 years? I know I don't. And I doubt anyone else can accurately predict it. I feel like with the better cartridge technology that we're seeing, I think that we're going to start to see transition from the 9mm to something else. Not going to happen in our lifetime, but we're going to start to see it. I think we're already starting to see it, honestly. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. I've rambled on long enough. Like, subscribe, share, description below. Link to all sorts of stuff. Go check that out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see y'all on the next video. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.